The battle between Uber and Lyft keeps heating up, and now Uber just revealed something pretty interesting. You can see right here, Uber aims to put more butts in fewer cars with shared rides. Talking now about Uber X Share, formerly called Uber Pool. And you can see right here, Uber is doubling down on shared rides in an effort to make ride-hailing less expensive and cities more livable. So it's interesting, I've done a bunch of videos about Lyft, with a new CEO, doing job cuts and everything, laying off over 1,000 people, having people come back to the office. Lyft is trying to really now compete with Uber, and Uber's firing back. And you can see right here, talking about Uber X Share. I mean, we all know what this is, but briefly describing it, you kind of carpool. That's pretty much it. So Uber says it can reduce congestion and emissions while making its ride-hailing service affordable to more people. I'm gonna skip down here. See right here, they're basically announcing Uber X Share in 5 additional US cities. Now, on one end, it's only 5, right? On the other end, it shows that they're really trying to expand this a lot more because, of course, they did suspend shared rides during COVID, of course, for obvious reasons, but they relaunched last summer in 9 major cities, including New York, Chicago, and LA. We do have Uber X Share here in LA. And the 5 new cities are Baltimore, Miami, which I'm surprised that actually wasn't on the initial list. I feel like Miami's pretty big. But Baltimore, Miami, Nashville, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C., with more to come. And like I said, UberX expansion of Uber X Share comes a week after Lyft laid off 26% of its workforce, over 1,000 people, and said it would eliminate shared rides to simplify its offerings. So it's interesting how Uber is directly now trying to compete with Lyft, where Uber's already on top, and Lyft is already not doing so well. And even though Lyft's trying to get back, Uber's saying, no, we're gonna keep fighting to push you even further down and try to get further up for ourselves. Now, yes, the battle is heating up, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm actually not a fan of the new terms of Uber X Share. Every driver, let's be honest, hates Uber X Share, Uber Pool, whatever. I remember still my first ride doing Uber Pool. Worst case scenario, both people booked an Uber Pool, because back in the day, in case you didn't know, I don't know why they did this, when you went to order an Uber, when Uber Pool first came out, it would auto pick it as a first thing. And for a lot of people who didn't know what that meant, they're like, oh, Uber Pool, it's cheaper, I'll just do that. And 2 people got in my car, that I picked up. They were both late for work, and they were arguing who should get dropped off first, because like I said, when you pull up the app initially, when Uber Pool came out, it was the default one. And a lot of people probably weren't even paying attention, being like, hey, I got to get an Uber. I got to go to work. And for me as the driver, I was like, great, this is awesome, right? Every driver hates Uber X Share and Uber Pool. And I'm going to be honest too, you just don't make as much money. I know Uber tries to push that, being like, oh no, trust me, you're going to make more money doing all types of rides. Nope. I already did a video about how to disable it super quick. I might as well say this for all the drivers out there. Go to the preferences section on your Uber driver app. Just uncheck Uber X Share. That simple. It will give you a note being like, no, you're going to make less money. Ignore that, right? But anyway, going back to the point of this video, one thing I think is interesting is they have changed the way Uber X Share works. This has kind of fluctuated a little bit, but I remember when it first kind of came back, you'd initially get something like 5% off the ride, which isn't that much. It's something like, I remember if I was doing, say, a $15 ride, for example, Uber X Share would be like $14.70 or something. And I'm like, oh, I'll just take a regular Uber. And then if you did get someone else in your car, it would give you like 20% back or something like that in Uber Cash. I don't know. The way they're doing it is very interesting, because back in the day, I remember with Uber Pool, it was a pretty significant savings. I mean, there'd be some times I'd see an Uber for 25 or 26 bucks, and an Uber Pool would be $12. So it's interesting how back in the day, Uber Pool would give you almost a cheaper ride immediately up front. So it was almost more on the upfront aspect. Now it's more on the back end, where if you happen to get somebody in your car, then you get, I think it's 20% off now and stuff like that. So it all depends upon that. Back in the day, there were times where I remember taking Uber Pool and I got no one in my car. It was just me, actually. And I'm like, hey, I got pretty much an Uber ride, but for the cost of an Uber Pool. So now they are changing that, So I will say that I feel like Uber X Share, I'd be very curious to see, is it going to have the popularity than it did back in the day? Because a lot of people took it back in the day. I'm not gonna lie, for me as a passenger taking it, sometimes I found it a lot more fun. I did kind of like meeting new people in an Uber pool. In addition, I mentioned this in other videos way back when, but one of my friends actually met her husband in an Uber pool, which I still feel like is an epic story. I feel like they should have had Uber sponsor that wedding or something. But I think there's a lot of fun to Uber pool, and I think there was a lot better economics behind it. Now, though, with UberX Share, I think the terms they're doing are a lot more, like I said, on the back end, where you get initially, 5% off? Not really worth it, in my opinion. If you happen to get somebody else, you get some bonus or some incentive back to you, or 20% off or whatever. I don't know. We'll see if that changes in the future. But overall, it is interesting to see now this battle of Uber and Lyft. It kind of, I know it sounds super weird. It reminds me a bit of almost like a Pokemon battle. That's how I was picturing it when reading this article. Being like, Lyft gets a new CEO. It's super effective. Like, Lyft lays off over 1,000 people. It's super effective for their economics. Then Uber strikes back with, making UberX Share in more places. It's super effective and blah, blah, blah. We'll see how effective it is, right? This battle's been going on a lot, and I think it's definitely heating up because I think Uber's now realizing, like, okay, Lyft is really, really, really trying to make moves with the new CEO, laying people off, making people come back to work, and a lot more. Lyft is really trying to make moves as they've not been doing well. Month to month, I've talked before as well about the Lyft stock going down. And I do want to stress, I'm a former accountant, but I'm not your accountant. And I haven't really done any stock analysis, so to speak, on this channel, besides more talking about that Lyft revenue is going down. But it is interesting to see. I mean, remember, if the stock is up or down, that definitely has a huge effect on the ride-sharing company overall, of course. And that does affect both passengers and drivers. But this whole battle is getting more and more intense. It is interesting how I think Uber's move now is to put UberX Share in more places. I thought it was everywhere, to be honest. I actually did not know that they only did 9 cities. I knew they were testing out in the beginning, but I thought it was already pretty much all over the country. But it's interesting that now they're starting to roll it out to more cities, and they're being like, all right, so now our best way to combat Lyft with what they're doing is to put UberX Share in more places. We'll have to see what happens, right? I still think, even still, I'd be very curious to see how that works, because I think for a lot of people on one end, given the economy, a lot of people are like, hey, if I can save money getting an Uber, I'm doing it. Everyone kind of knew that with Uber Pool, way cheaper and everything. Now, though, yes, I think that, yes, they're going to be able to save money and everything, but I'm also kind of curious with the pandemic, even though it's kind of over, I feel like, I think it's over, right? I feel like COVID is over and everything. And it's interesting because I feel like for a lot of people still, I can see a lot of people saying, look, I know it's over. I don't have to wear masks or anything. I don't have to worry about that. But, just kind of, I just don't want to be in a car with another random stranger, right? I can see a lot of people still having almost this prior anxiety about it, right? Because obviously during the pandemic, it was crazy. There was a lot of bad stuff that happened to where that, or to undersimplify that or underestimate that. I mean, it was horrible what happened. And so I think for a lot of people that might still have this kind of residue of you know what, I'm just not going to take an UberX Share because I don't want to be in a car with someone random, but we'll have to see what happens. It's interesting now that I think Uber and Lyft are now starting to kind of fire back at each other. I got to be honest, I haven't really done a video about this. Well, I may have touched upon it, but I'm definitely more team Lyft. Personally, I do think Lyft treats its drivers better, or even though they're a business, I think they at least try to. I think Uber cares way less. But, and I think this was tricky. At the end of the day, it's all about the bottom line. I've gotten a lot of comments from drivers saying, yeah, Mark, I hate to say it, I like Lyft more, but I go to start driving for Lyft, I don't get as many rides. I don't get as many bonuses. I don't get paid as much. And I start driving for Uber, who I don't really like, but I'm getting rides quicker. I am getting more expensive rides. I'm getting paid more. I'm getting more bonuses, so on and so forth. I even got some comments recently of people saying, hey, Mark, I actually take them as a passenger, and I've noticed that the wait times for Lyfts are significantly longer now than for Uber. If I order a Lyft, it can take, who knows how long it's going to take to get one. If I order an Uber, boom, it's right there in an instant. And let's be honest, with time being an important thing for people, whether you're going out to a bar, whether you're going to work or whatever, people want to get a ride as quick as possible. And so I think with all these things coming into play, the battle rages on,